A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there was a master and an apprentice, one that was taught the ways of the dark side of the Force and who eventually took over his master's place as the Sith Lord of Legend. So today we are going to be talking about the master and apprentice, specifically Darth Plagueis the Wise and Emperor Palpatine. So without further ado, here we go. But first, as always, we start with a little bit of a breakdown. Darth Plagueis the Wise was a Mun Dark Lord of the Sith, who secretly trained the Stranger, also known as Chimer, and Darth Sidious, also known as Sheev Palpatine, in the ways of the Sith and as his apprentices. Now, we are not going to be talking about Chimer really for that long, since he's only in one season of The Acolyte, and there's not really a lot of information being told about him, so we're just going to stick with Plagueis and Palpatine for right now. But the key thing to talk about when it comes to Darth Plagueis the Wise was his lust for immortality, believing that the secret lied in science. To that end, he researched bioengineering with Sidious, who possessed a strong connection to the Force, and experimented with his ability to influence the midichlorians to create life, and in other various factors. He studied cloning, bioengineering, he studied genetics, he studied literally everything that he could when it came to science, as well as the abilities of Sith alchemy, with Sith alchemy being a very forbidden practice in the Jedi Order, going all the way back to 26,000 BBY, where the Jedi Temple Master Vordana basically forbade the entirety of the practice of Sith alchemy, saying that it should have no part in the Jedi's experience, that it is a dark force, arcane and dangerous, and it has the power to upset the very balance of the Force itself, which, ironically enough, led to the creation of Anakin Skywalker, as the powers of the dark side of the Force leading from Sith alchemy caused the entirety of the Force to shift in balance and to create Anakin Skywalker as a rebuttal. But anyway, back to Plagueis. Plagueis ended up becoming a Dark Lord of the Sith after killing his very own master during a mining accident. This master, of course, being Darth Tenebrous, and he basically killed his former master and became a Sith Lord in his own right. That's how the Rule of Two works. And as the titled new Dark Lord of the Sith in about 65 BBY, Plagueis, under the name of Higo Damas II, went to the planet of Naboo and discovered Palpatine. Of course, there was a whole situation having to do with Naboo. There were some individuals who were wanting to be elected as king and queen. Some of the candidates were divided among conservative factions that wanted the entirety of Naboo to remain an isolationist republic member world, and its resources were being exploited only internally and not by external megacorporations, and the liberal faction wanted to integrate Naboo into the Galactic Republic, and everything was going sideways from there. Plagueis, of course, doing what Plagueis does, he created a new spaceport for Theed to export the plasma from the entirety of the capital city and from the planet to the Trade Federation, so the Trade Federation can make a crap ton of money. Plagueis eventually learned that T'Palo had an informant in a rival campaign who provided him with vital information. His agents discovered that the informant was a 17-year-old student in the legislative youth group by the name of Sheev Palpatine. Plagueis, of course, was immediately interested in the young man, and he immediately brought him into the fold. He wanted him to spy on T'Palo's very own election, as well as the Damask holding situation with Naboo. But, of course, Palpatine, being as smart as he was, wanted to speak with Plagueis directly, and he wanted to report to him directly and alone, so they would be more or less working together, aside from, Palpatine just being another pawn in his scheme. Over the course of the entire time where Palpatine and Plagueis were working together, Plagueis sensed overwhelming power in Palpatine and manipulated him and manipulated his anger and resentment towards his abusive family, urging him to embrace the dark side of the Force and quite literally kill all of them. So that's exactly what he did. Murdered every single member of his family, made it look like a massive accident, and he was basically left alone alongside Plagueis and was basically initiated into the Sith and became Lord Sidious. Of course, there was a lot with Palpatine after he became a Sith Lord, and after he became the Dark Lord of the Sith known as Sidious, he immediately burst into action. He trained as a Sith Lord in lightsaber combat, Force ability, Sith alchemy, and he also used his family's name to gain massive influence in Naboo, to the point where he actually became a senator of Naboo, and he could actually work on the inside of the actual Senate itself to make it to where he would actually become one of the most likable and one of the most well-respected senators throughout the entirety of the galaxy. And of course, for Plagueis, everything was circling around him and his plans to transform the entirety of the Republic into a new empire. He talked to the Kaminoans, he talked to many other individualized groups to see what would be the best situation to have a clone army made after. Count Dooku obviously gave his idea to effectively use a Mandalorian to create the clone army, and that took about a couple of years to set all that up. But it wouldn't be until about 32 BBY where everything changed. Immediately upon Anakin arriving on Coruscant, Plagueis could sense his amazing power. He could feel the power of the Force within him, and Sidious was even talking him up as if he was this new age Jedi that just came out of nowhere. He was trying to meet up with him at Queen Amidala's apartment, but arrived too late. And while Plagueis didn't actually meet Anakin directly, he did observe the boy from afar and reached out with the Force and received a terrifying vision of a black-helmeted cyborg known as Darth Vader rising from an operating table, confirmed that the boy's importance to the entirety of the galaxy was beyond anything that he could possibly imagine. And of course, through this Force vision, he basically confirmed the ideology that Anakin was in fact the Chosen One. And while some Jedi didn't actually believe that, with the exception of Qui-Gon Jinn, Plagueis was very determined that Anakin was actually the Chosen One. He was the one that will bring balance to the Force, and he had the idea of basically using Palpatine so they can manipulate Anakin into joining the dark side of the Force later on down the line. But unfortunately, that didn't work out for him. Because immediately after the new election to declare the new Supreme Chancellor, Palpatine would murder Plagueis in his sleep. Because of the victory that they had accomplished, because Palpatine was going to be the new Supreme Chancellor, and because Palpatine knew that Plagueis wanted to manipulate Anakin Skywalker into becoming his new apprentice, he thought that he would get the jump on Plagueis, get him so drunk that he passed out, and killed him in his sleep, effectively becoming the new Sith Lord, and he would effectively attempt to do everything in his power to make Anakin Skywalker his new apprentice. But first, he had to get through one other apprentice, and that was Count Dooku. But we'll talk about Palpatine and his other apprentices later on down the line. So until then, I'll see you guys later, and I hope you have a fantastic day.